Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, members. To all members of Derry City and Strabane District Council, you're hereby summoned to attend this reconvened monthly meeting of the council, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically here in the council chamber on Thursday, the 21st of November, 2024 at 2 o'clock. So members, just starting as always with the roll call. Alderman Cook.
Online, John.
Alderman Guy.
There's an apology.
Apologies. Alderman Hussey. Alderman Kerrigan.
Online, John.
Alderman McMorris.
Online, John.
Alderman Middleton.
Online, John.
Alderman Montgomery.
Online, John.
Alderman Wilkinson. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Lillian Barr.
Yeah, John.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Here, online.
Councillor Boggs.
Apologies, John.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Clark.
Sure.
Councillor Cusick. Councillor Deeney. Councillor Devine.
And Shaw.
Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Alex Duffy.
Shaw.
Councillor Sandra Duffy. Councillor Farrell. Councillor Fleming.
And Shaw.
Councillor Gallagher.
And Shaw.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart. Councillor Hart. Councillor Heaney.
Shaw.
Councillor Hutton.
Online,
Councillor
John.
Sorry, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Shaw.
Councillor Leonard.
Apologies.
Councillor Logue.
And Shaw. Online.
Councillor McDade.
Online, John.
Councillor McGinley.
Oh, and Shaw. John. Online.
Councillor McHugh. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Norris. Councillor O'Farrell. Councillor Riley.
Online, John.
Councillor Tierney.
Here, John.
Councillor Neelis.
And Shaw.
Thank you, members. Is there anyone, members, I've missed online there? Councillor Duffy, yes.
Delph online, John.
John online as well.
Still is online.
Okay, thank you both.
And Councillor Farrell online as well.
Councillor Farrell, is that yourself?
Is in.
Yeah. Councillor Farrell.
Did you get Keith Kerrigan and Gary Wilkinson, John?
I did indeed.
All right,
Alderman
thanks.
McMorris, thank you. Gary, Alderman Wilkinson, I have. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members.
Okay, members, the next item is broadcast statement, and I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council website. Next agenda item is declaration of members' interest. Councillor Jackson.
It's the exact
Same.
same declaration I made yesterday.
Okay.
So that declaration's carried through from yesterday. Thank you.
Yeah. Duffy.
Could I make a similar declaration? My husband works for the Western Trust as well.
Okay. Any other? Brian, as yesterday? Yeah. Does they carry on?
Just the same for
Yeah.
yesterday as well, Mayor.
Okay. All interest declared yesterday will carry on. Okay, so moving on, it's notice of motions and Councillor Inalis to move.
I'll just take the motion as read then. So I'm bringing this motion into council today in
Do
recognition.
you have a seconder before we move? Thank you.
Okay, I'm bringing this motion into council today in recognition and support of the people and the organisations who have worked tirelessly over the years to revive and celebrate our native language in our city and district. Because of their work, I have 3 children who have been educated through Irish, and regardless of what language is your second language, bilingualism is a gift that should be bestowed on all children through the primary education system. We have multiple Gael schools in our district, a secondary school 20 minutes down the road, clubs, sporting teams, businesses and organisations who nurture the language daily. We are now at a point where we feel that recognition is deserved, and this can be done through Forest na Gaeilge awarding Líonra status. This award recognises an area outside of the Gaeltacht which has made significant inroads into celebrating and nurturing the Irish language. Achieving this status would result in the employment of an Irish language planner, whose job it would be to promote the language and assess where the gaps are when we look at accessibility to Irish from the cradle to the grave. It would facilitate joined-up thinking and a more collective approach in the design of what the future of the language looks like. Events would be funded, which would concentrate on nurturing the heritage and culture of the language. To achieve this, it is important that the Council supports any organisation who wishes to apply for this award. Council can do this by allowing a Council officer to sit on the Development Board who will write the application, and by allowing officers to engage and share reports already written by Council on subjects such as town and language planning. It is anticipated that Forest na Gaeilge will open applications for this award in the new year, and so this is why I would ask you to support this motion so that the process to apply could start.
Thank you, Councillor Inalis. Councillor Mooney?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Inalis for bringing this motion. And it's a welcome motion, I should say, from our perspective, the SDLP, and we'll obviously be supporting it. When I got the pack out on Friday, I had an opportunity to look on their own website, and there was a small ready reckoner of our own Irish language policy. And it gave an interesting stat as their own city and district is what, at the current moment in time, it says in this document anyway, that currently nearly 14% of the population has a knowledge of Irish, and it's my belief and our party's belief that obviously this should be grown. And I think looking at Councillor Neil's motion, the first 3 paragraphs, they have to place a process and a way forward for that growth to happen. And we'd certainly be supporting it because it's growth that we want to achieve and see in our community for the development of the Irish language. And I know Councillor Neil has outlined the various ways in the town already through those present providers, and especially the forum in education. It gives me an opportunity to welcome in my own district in Waterside, and Councillor Jackson will be very familiar with the development of an East School up in Godnascale on top of Hill, which is progressing at this moment in time, and like to give my support, and obviously more so to commend the committee who are doing tireless work to bring this project to conclusion, and hopefully to bring these schools up in the Waterside. And this to me is what provides, and it falls under what Councillor Neil's motion is doing, is to provide a forum where we can grow Irish. I think it's a commendable motion, and I'm really glad it's been brought, and thank you to Councillor Neil for bringing it, and hopefully this can be incorporated in their own Irish language policy in some way, and the dedicated Irish policy and language officer can assist in anybody coming forward, and not even Forest na Gaeilge, but others that come in and sort of utilise our resources to the best of their ability. So thank you. We'll certainly be supporting it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Councillor Harkin?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Elis for bringing forward this motion. And People Before Profit are very, very happy to support it. I think that the revival of the Irish language in our district and across the north and across the island is very exciting, and I think that our council should do everything we can to facilitate that and develop it and to encourage the growth of the Irish language and to support the Irish language sector and the Irish language movement. So fully endorse this motion, and thanks for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Alderman Carrigan online.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for I'll step closer here to this microphone. Thank you very much for allowing me in. And again, Councillor Neelis has brought forward the motion. Historically, the unionist parties may well have stepped away from in regards to motions in regard to the Irish language there. And a lot of the motion there, I don't really see major difficulties with. Those that wish to promote the Irish language, we don't have a difficulty in that. There's nothing in regards to within unionism to fear in the Irish language or to have any difficulty with. But I would like to have some queries there in regards to, I suppose Grace did make mention there of potential, some of the levels of support. I don't see that the motion is maybe asking necessarily for a massive financial commitment, but it is seem to be seeking for officer time and provision of resources from the council. So I'm just trying to factor, maybe that's something that can't be provided today, because it is mentioning of so any organizations who wish to apply for the award, that they would get support from council. So I'm just trying to get it in my head that the financial implications that will be applied in that regard on the council and that, and then for council to provide representation onto the panel. So there are, I'm just trying to get that cleared in my own head, but there has got to be an acceptance in regards, and again, we do have a trilingual policy here in regards to even the council as we put forward, as we decided upon that and agreed upon that, and the support that is given to the Ulster Scots, but also there has got to be that recognition that there are those, particularly within the PUL community, who have a difficulty with the Irish language, and not necessarily with the language as such, but the way it is used by certain individuals in certain corners, certain sections of society. But so I just would like some more clarification on this in regards to costing in there. But I feel at this stage we won't vote against it, but I feel that we're more leaning to abstain on this motion at this stage. But thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me in.
Thank you, Alderman Carrigan. And just to let you know, this morning I was actually launching the Ulster Scots Week, which will be next week, I believe it starts. So I think the council is supporting both Ulster Scots and Irish language. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the motion. I do wish to propose an amendment or an insertion into the motion, and I've given it up. I wish to propose it before the second paragraph, and we'll speak to that if my amendment is seconded.
What's the amendment?
The amendment is that, subject to a report on the resource implications of the motion with regard to support, with regard to representation, with regard to assistance. As you can see there, I haven't got a seconder yet, so...
Mayor, I'm happy to second. I suppose I touched on that in my comments, so I didn't think we would get that, but I'm content to second Alderman Hussey's amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Carrigan.
Speaking to the amendment then, a bit like Alderman Carrigan, I do have concerns. I mean, this council does, and quite rightly, support various languages throughout the district. So, giving support is something that we do and continue to do. And I suppose that's essentially what the motion is seeking. I don't know. I would like to know, is this extra over and above what we already do? Would there be resource implications? I'm not sure. How wide is the proposal? Does it cover the entire council area? Is it localised? So what are the resource implications? As I say, my grandfather and my mother were Irish speakers. My father was a Welsh speaker. And my grandfather's favourite expression would have been Fahabala, clear the way. So, all I'm seeking is to include the amendment so that we can clear the way to allow the motion to progress. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Jose. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And speaking to the amendment and the amendment only, as Councillor Mooney has covered our support for the wider motion. As I understand it, and I'm really glad that Councillor Nillis outlined it in her opening remarks, this is to bring another accolade to this city and district, something which everybody, if we are successful, should be proud of, and something which, as a city and district, we should be striving towards. It's my understanding that every notice of motion that is passed before this council is subject to a further report brought to a particular committee. Therefore, I would like to know, first and foremost, is the motion or is the amendment required? Because it's going to do that anyway. And does it need to be included therein? I also can't allow an amendment like this to pass today without pointing out the irony of Alderman Hussey looking for a report to bring back information around resource and representation on a board following a lengthy conversation we had yesterday about representation on a board which looked for resource with no oversight by this council, which we had no information, and to this point, to the best of my knowledge, still have no information to the benefit of the people of the city and district. The difference in this one will be that there is an application process. Council are being asked to be involved in that through, if I understood Councillor Nillis correctly, in the development of that, and we'll have an input into that, not similar to the NAC request that we had yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Jackson.
I had a burning question, and I thought Councillor Tierney asked it, but just to be sure, can we have legal advice in relation to the is this amendment necessary, or is it a valid amendment given that every motion results in a report coming back to the committee? And just have a legal opinion on the amendment.
Yeah, so members, two separate questions, I suppose. Is the first one is that council procedure that an amendment or that a paper would come forward, and the answer to that question is yes, it would. Paper would come forward from officers in any event. Second question is it a valid amendment in line with our current standing orders? And the answer to that question is still yes, it is.
Okay, members, I do not see anyone who wants to speak on this, and online I don't see any indication. Mayor, on amendment, is that Alderman Carrigan? You want to come back?
Just very briefly, I know I seconded the proposal, but just very briefly on it, again, I suppose that was one of the points I was asking, was to try and get a wee bit of information, and Alderman Hussey has put it forward into the actual motion there with his amendment there, just to get the potential costs and that, and I know it will come back to the paper, but in regards to remarks, in regards to the length of debate yesterday, if parties would send representatives to an organisation which they have representatives on, and I think it would have helped yesterday's debate a lot, whereby the parties don't send the representatives, and one party is 2 and another party is 3, and they don't attend. So I think it's a wee bit of a swipe at Alderman Hussey, which is slightly unfair.
Thank you, Alderman Carrigan. Members, let's not mix discussions. We had a lengthy discussion yesterday about that issue. Let's focus on this one today. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, the amendments really doesn't do anything in my view because it is going to happen anyway. The only major concern that I have, and Mayor, maybe with your permission, we can ask Councillor Nealis to clear this up. I understood that Councillor Nealis was saying that this development of this application was beginning sort of right away in terms of in support of the anticipated opening of this competition early in the new year. My only concern around the amendment is when we include the word subject to it, I just fear that it may hold up council getting involved in the process. And I would just like to know if that is a possibility, given the fact that Councillor Nealis is saying that this is going to open early in the new year, if I'm hearing her right.
Councillor Nealis, do you want to respond to that?
Forest and Gaelica haven't given out their date yet, but their last run of the competition ends in December the 31st, 2024. So we'll be opening again in the new year, but they haven't given a date yet. So that was actually a concern that I had in my own head. So thank you for bringing it up. Is how long? What would this add to the timeline? In terms of like, you know, is this going to hold us back 6 months? Is it, you know, I don't know.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's going to be an answer from officers on that piece. But regardless of the amendment, there's going to need to be a report coming to committee anyway. So we would stress the urgency in getting that report back as soon as possible. But from our party's perspective on the amendment, Alderman Kerrigan made a comment in relation to unionist parties would normally move away or can we use they would normally not support anything in relation to the Irish language, and I found it a very strange comment. But if this amendment, albeit it's unnecessary, but if that's what it takes to get unionist parties across the line and acknowledge the importance of promoting the Irish language and the value that a lot of us here hold the Irish language dear. If that's what it takes, we're happy to support it. So on the amendment, we will be voting for it. Thanks, Bert.
Alderman Jose.
Thanks for the opportunity to come in again. And I know you could stop me because I've already spoken. I thank Councillor Jackson for his intervention. And to be clear to Councillor Jackson, having heard what I've heard, that you know that there would be scrutiny of this anyway, whether the amendment passed or not. I'm sorry to have to tell you, Councillor Jackson, I would still be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Alderman Jose.
His last remarks is very close, nearly talking me out of supporting this amendment. But given, and I think Councillor Jackson makes a fair point, if this amendment, albeit asking for a process that was going to happen anyway, helps in some way to try and unify this council in our support for Councillor Nealis's, what I think is a fantastic idea that council get involved. The SDLP are happy to support the amendment, but point out that we don't believe that it is necessary either.
Thank you, members. Okay, it looks like it's unanimous. Can I see online if there's anybody?
Yeah, I've indicated I'd like to comment, please.
Who is that?
Councillor Donnelly.
Oh, Councillor Donnelly. Okay, go ahead.
My position on this, if something's unnecessary, it's unnecessary, and we don't need to be pandering. I think that the idea that, you know, something is a language can be unionist or nationalist is completely ridiculous. You know, I think it's well known that Presbyterianism kept the language alive when it was struggling, and I think that if it's unnecessary, we don't need to vote for it. And there is more and more people within the unionist community who are learning the language, and that language belongs to everybody. So I am going to oppose the amendment. The point made earlier, and I think it's important, you're saying about mixing conversations. I think it's important that under the hunt system, not everybody gets an opportunity.
I'll ring you in 20 months, or I'll come over.
Councillor Raymond Barr, would you please put your mic off?
The point made by Alderman Kerrigan that people should take up positions on boards. There's an awful lot of people who don't get the opportunity under the hunt. So without that information coming to council, some people haven't got the opportunity to be on them and will miss out on that information. So I think it's important also to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Okay, members, we do have differing views on this issue, so I'll call for a vote on the amendment.
Do we want to check them out? Yeah.
Would you just check who is voting against the amendment?
Councillor Gallagher, Chair.
Councillor Donnelly.
Councillor Donnelly?
Councillor
And
Barr.
Paul Gallagher?
Councillor
Sean
Barr.
Harkin? Abstain. Sean Harkin abstain. Anybody else abstaining? Okay, thank you, members. So we have one abstain and 2 voting against. And everybody else is for, right?
3 voting against.
3 voting against. Who else?
Councillor Barr.
Raymond Barr?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, members, thank you. Moving on to the next motion. Oh, sorry. A vote for the amendment has been passed, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So Grace, sum up, please.
Like the Irish language only ever adds to the culture and heritage of anywhere. You know, like we're living in a city where there's, as you were saying, the percentage of people who have a knowledge of the Irish language. We have our schools, we have businesses using it all the time. You see it in, like, you know, branding and clothes, and it's everywhere now. So all this is doing is adding to the area. It's not taken away from anybody else. All it is doing is adding, and through this, like any organisation that wants to apply for it will be able to bring extra funding and extra employment to our area. So there is nothing in this that, you know, I just don't understand anybody that would have any issues with the Irish language, because it's just so close to my heart. I just want to answer one question. One of the reasons that we do need to bring some of the officers on board in this is because we do need to do a mapping exercise, and the officers are the ones with the experience on that to see the area that should be covered. So just, you were asking about the area. So this is just stuff, you know, like instead of an organisation having to pay somebody to go out and do that work that's already done within the council, the paper's already there within the council. That's all it's to do with. It's not, you know, a big money grabbing exercise or anything like that. It's just so that the council can facilitate the application so that our area can benefit from a fund that will give, you know, a status to the language here, because it is outside of a Gaeltacht area, but it's still an area where Irish is flourishing and growing every day. And just Sinead, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Okay, members, a vote for the substantial motion. Can I presume it is unanimous, or is there any member who wants to vote against or abstain? Okay, it looks like it's unanimous. Thank you, members. Moving on to the next motion, Councillor Harkin to move.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I take the motion as read?
I'll second it, Mayor. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. In many ways, this is a very frustrating motion to bring to the chamber, because I feel like we brought this motion to the chamber probably many times before. And I think that health and social care workers believe that they struck and won this demand and there was promises made by the Stormont executive that they would have pay parity. And it is very frustrating for workers across our health and social care sector that they do not have pay parity, that pay parity does not exist for our nurses and all the staff in our hospitals and in our care system. And as people will know, the Northern Ireland Committee of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions met here last week in the Guildhall for 2 days, and it was great to have that event here. And I spoke to a lot of delegates from in different unions representing workers in health and social care, and there was great anger and frustration and exhaustion with this demand, but also a determination to not let this just sit there. And there is, among the delegates, there was a united sense that strike action would have to be taken if there wasn't a response from the executive. And Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister, was here, and all the unions challenged Michelle outside on pay parity, which they were right to do. And that's the level of feeling, I believe, across the workforce. And it is truly shocking that our workers, who we've praised up and down through COVID, through the cost of living crisis, still don't have basic pay parity, where they haven't received the 5.5% that was agreed through the pay review body. And I don't believe 5.5% is actually fair. I think that they deserve a lot more to make up for years of painful pay cuts and also inflationary pressures that we've seen over the last number of years. I don't believe the proposal that the Health Minister is making is a good one, where he is proposing to have a two-stage process where health and social care workers will receive some of their payment backdated to the summer, but not backdated to when it should begin. And then he will attempt to find the money at some point down the line. For me, this is just a continuation of pay disparity. And for many of the workers that I've talked to in different unions, that's how they view it. Now, I know that the trade unions right now are consulting their members on this proposal, and I'm not sure what the outcome of those discussions will be. If it will mean that they will decide not to take industrial action. But I think it's important that this council takes a very clear position that, as we have done in the past, that pay parity is a basic right for our health and social care workers. And I think we have to send that message both to the trade unions and to the workers who don't have pay parity, but also to the Minister and to the Stormont executive. It's just not good enough that this is a promise that was broken. And I don't think that the proposal that is being put before workers right now is good enough either. So I hope that there will be support across the chamber today for our health and social care workers to get pay parity and undo this injustice. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Houghton online.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing the motion, and happy to second the motion. Sinn Féin, we do fully support what is within the motion as well. So in relation to healthcare staff, in my opinion, they're the bedrock of our society. They're the people who are looking after us when we're unwell, looking after our children, our parents and our grandparents. So in relation to pay parity, when you look at the healthcare workers here in the north of Ireland, they're working in the very exact same environments as their colleagues in England, Scotland and Wales. And that's pressures when you go into work to start your shift. In relation to oversubscribed hospitals, you're talking about the long waiting lists. So they're all working in the same environment, so they all should be getting the same amount of pay. Now, our Finance Minister, Keeve Archibald, she's continuing to make the case to the British government about the fair funding for workers, families, and indeed for public services as a whole. But I think yesterday it had been said on a few occasions in the chamber in relation to austerity. And about decisions being made by a British government that affect us here in the north. So in my opinion, the sooner that we do make that disconnection, then the more we can start making decisions here for our own healthcare workers, for our families, and for public services, and indeed putting money into people's pockets. But thank you, Councillor Hutton, for the motion, and I'm happy to second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Houghton. Alderman Cook, online.
Thanks, Mayor, for letting me in, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion forward. I do feel that we as a council should be doing all that we can to help secure fair pay for health and social care workers in Northern Ireland. They should be on par with their fellow workers in England, Scotland and Wales. So on behalf of the DP, we do support Councillor Harkin's motion. I understand that we need to do what we need to do to get fair pay. I just hope that it doesn't come to the industrial action due to the already existing and very long waiting lists. So we would just urge that the Health Minister to get a resolution for this. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alderman Cook. Councillor Tierney.
Mayor, thank you, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion. I regret that he found himself in a position where we had to debate this. Everyone thought that this was something which was already agreed and secured, and unfortunately that has fallen by the wayside. Councillor Harkin, when he was speaking, said that he thinks that the idea by the Minister to do this in 2 stages, to pay back as far as last summer, and then he would investigate where he could get the second tranche of this, if you like, at a later date, with no date given when people can expect it, or even where he's going to try and get that money, other than monitoring rounds. But I think the Minister even thinks that that's a bad idea. And the reason that I think that is because at the beginning of this process, he was very clear that he wanted this all kept confidential between him and the unions. And if he thought it was a good idea, I'm sure he would be out showcasing it and celebrating the fact that he's come up with it. So I think there's an indication there that is a bad idea from the Minister. The fact that we have to debate this year on year on year is completely unfair on healthcare workers. As I said yesterday, my wife's a nurse. I see every day of the week how hard nurses work. I see how hard and how tired they are whenever they're coming back from work, and the fatigue that sets in. And all they want is the same as their colleagues across these islands. They're not asking for anything different. They're not asking for special treatment. They're just asking to be treated the same. Mayor, nurses often find themselves working longer shifts than they're actually supposed to. My daughter was in hospital yesterday getting her tonsils removed. She had to be over in the hospital for 8 o'clock yesterday morning. The nurse that welcomed her there at 8 o'clock yesterday morning also signed her out at 9:30 last night. That's an incredibly long shift for anybody to be working, and they're not getting the right recognition that they deserve for doing this. It is absolutely imperative that the executive must step on some way to make sure that this is resolved. I think it's the last 2, I stand corrected, I may be wrong, I think it's the last 2, possibly 3 winters that we have stood with nurses and healthcare workers on picket lines, demanding fair pay, safe staffing levels. I don't want to do that this winter. I don't want to see nurses and healthcare workers out on picket lines this winter. They're better served when they're in doing their job. That's where they want to be. That's where they should be. The Minister, in my view, the executive as a whole, need to do their job. They need to come up with this money, and they need to support our healthcare workers like they have already promised to do. The SDLP are in full support of the motion. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Alderman Hosse.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for the motion. I suspect the majority in this chamber, I have family members working in the health service from consultant level right through to domestic staff, ancillary staff. I did a quick count there of the ones I can think of. There's 7 of them. as I say, from right through all levels in the healthcare system. And I fully support Councillor Harkin's motion. However, I want to add an element of pragmatism. And in that vein, and I hope that Councillor Harkin will accept this, I wish to propose an amendment whereby I'm asking that essentially the Minister for Health be afforded the resources to award pay parity without impacting on other services. And the motion is going up. I haven't got a seconder, but when it goes up, I'll speak to it if it is seconded. If not, I'll just speak to the main motion.
Alderman Jose, we need a seconder for that amendment.
Mayor, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my seconder. And I'm gathering an atmosphere of acceptance and of the amendment, but we'll see as we go through it. I think from the very beginning of the revived assembly, the first health minister who went on, that was the first issue that I had to deal with, was nurses' pay, and he dealt with it. And there was the commitment to parity at that time. The current health minister, I believe, as has been suggested or implied, wishes to enact proper pay parity for workers, pay parity with all of those across the United Kingdom. Perhaps not all, because there are varying rates, etc., but what can be agreed with the unions. When the executive did come back together again, and we had a new health minister, and the health minister, as we know, expressed his concerns on the financial issues. But at the same time, all executive parties agreed that health was their #1 priority. But if you're going to make it your #1 priority, you have to ensure that the resources are there. And as I say, the minister is juggling at the moment. I suppose in biblical terms, he's trying to make bricks without straw, because he doesn't want to impact on services, but he does want to properly remunerate those who work within the service. So within that context, I am asking Council to accept the amendment that, as well as asking the Health Minister to ensure pay parity for all health workers, that is, as executive colleagues, ensure that he has the resources. And I accept that the Finance Minister, as has been said, is doing her best at Westminster to ensure that additional finance comes through. So on that motion, on that, I finish and propose the amendment.
Thank you, Alderman Jose. Councillor Jackson.
I'm not good there. Just on the amendment, and I suppose in a broad sense, it's concerning that we're moving away from, I think we got into a practice where any amendments were emailed out to people, to all members, because it is very difficult to read if you're in person here in the chamber. And it was a good idea, it was good practice. So for everybody to see the amendment, we don't need advance notice, but if the amendment can be emailed out to everybody, so we can all have access to it and see it, would be a lot more helpful. But have been able to read the amendment, and we're, from our perspective, we're supportive of it. We everybody has, and all parties have acknowledged the particular pressures that our health service is under, and the need for further investment. That's been acknowledged. It's been acknowledged by the First Minister, the Finance Minister, and all executive parties. So we have no issue in that respect in terms of support and supporting this amendment. But there is an onus on the Health Minister to prioritise and recognise the role that healthcare workers play. The Finance Minister has indicated that, has stated that it's going to take more than one budget. They overturn the damage or repair the damage that's been caused by 14 years of Tory austerity. But given the role of our health service is on its knees, and if we don't have a workforce, we don't have healthcare workers, then we won't have a health service. There's particular challenges here in the north where there's, in terms of retention of skilled workers, who are getting much higher, they're getting much better pay, providing the same service, only a couple of miles down the road. So there's a real urgency on this, and the Health Minister needs to recognise that and prioritise healthcare workers. And I know I have declared an interest, but in relation to this this amendment, we're fully supportive of it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. And on the amendment, we have no issue with it either. If the money to sort out pay parity was taken out of the health budget, I don't think that would help healthcare staff. It would give them more money, but the money would be gone from the budget, so there would be another hole somewhere else within the health budget that they would be expected to do more duties, longer hours, to try and plug that. So that wouldn't help healthcare workers. I don't think healthcare workers expect the minister to take that money out of an already existing budget because health is so under pressure. So we fully support the amendment. Councillor Jackson talked there just about healthcare workers going a couple of miles on down the road and getting more money. Healthcare workers are actually going to banking agencies in the same trust, in the same ward, doing the same job for far better money. They don't even have to travel a couple of miles down the road. That's the reality of this. The healthcare workers, the nurses in Altnagalvin could very quickly switch to a banking agency which the trust are crying out for. They can go into the same ward, they can work the same shifts, and they can come out with a lot more money. So it's not only about travelling a short distance down the road. This is possible to do within our own area. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But in terms of the amendment, we have no issue whatsoever supporting it. And we would implore every minister within the executive to do whatever they can to allow this pay parity issue to be resolved once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, I'm sensing that the amendment is fully supported. Is there anyone who is voting against the amendment? No?
Mayor, I have my hand up there.
You're voting against, or you've indicated to speak?
Yes.
All right, Councillor Barr, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harkin, for bringing the motion. And I have no problem with the amendment, but the fact that nurses here being denied a pay increase in line with their colleagues in Wales, Scotland and England is nothing short of scandalous. Brings into focus once again the ineffectiveness of the Stormont Assembly and highlights once again the need for an all-Ireland health service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barr. Okay, can I presume that the amendment is fully supported? Councillor Barr, are you looking to come back in?
No.
Okay, Councillor Harkin, do you sum up? Thank you.
Mayor, and in regard to the amendment, fully support it on the basis that I think that pay parity for our health and social care workers is the responsibility of the entire Stormont executive. And if workers are forced out on strike this winter, which I hope they don't have to do, I don't think they'll be blaming one minister or one party. I think that they will see it as the collective fault of the Stormont, because that's how it's been viewed in the past. The last thing I want to see is across the board health and social care strikes this winter, because that will not be great for workers who have to stand on picket lines and lose pay. And it's not going to be great for all of us who depend on the care that they provide. So I think that there's a real urgency in Stormont coming up with a plan that actually agrees to what was already promised, which is to do basic pay parity. I think that the executive collectively has to come up with that money, because if they don't, it's not just going to be a case of a strike this winter, or it'll demoralize further our workforce. It'll mean that people won't go above and beyond in the way that Councillor Tierney described, because that is what keeps our health service together at this point. The willingness of the workforce to actually support it, because they know how important the work is that they do, even though they know they're underpaid, even though they know they're getting exploited. It's because they believe in the health service and want it to function and want to keep people healthy and want to keep people alive. We will lose workers if we don't, if we can't give basic pay parity. There's a number of options for people, so that's why I think that this has to be resolved. This is something that should not be happening. It feels like we are going back in time, and that's why I think that it's coming loud and clear from health and social care workers that pay parity is a must. And I think from this council, and hopefully from other councils, the same message being sent to the minister and the executive will speed up a plan to make sure that the pay disparity is ended. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Members, again, I do not hear any dissenting voices on this, so can I assume it's fully supported and unanimous? Thank you, members. Okay, moving on to agenda item 18, sealing list November 2024, pages 115 to 118. This paper was recommended for adoption. Can I get a proposal or anyone who would? Thank you, Tierney. Thank you, Sean Money. Anyone who want to speak on it? Okay, perfect. Well, the rest is open for information. Is there any members who would like to speak on any of the agenda from agenda 19 to 21? Okay, no one? Thank you, members, and that concludes our reconvened meeting.
Thank you, Mayor.